Hey, what's going on, guys, and welcome to the Christopher Marc Show. Today, I have a beautiful individual with me. We had an amazing before we even did this. We had an amazing conversation, and it was deep, and it was vibing, and it was beautiful. So, Tanisha, can you tell everybody your full name and what you do?
Yes. Hi, Chris. I am Tanisha Naughton. I am a women's wellness empowerment coach, helping them reclaim their health and fall back in love with themselves through mindfulness practices and also wellness ones. And pretty much I do that in sacred container spaces, which are usually retreats or sometimes in holistic one-on-one centers.
So, what sparked you to do this? What was that thing that was like, hey, you know what? I'm here to help my sisters out. I'm here to help out the women. What's going on? What happened with that? That's how that started.
uh, life
Okay.
within the household. So my mom was diagnosed with having diabetes around 2016, 2017.
Mhm.
And at this time, I was on my own health journey, I would say, even though I'm a previous college athlete and a personal trainer. At this time, I had gained 30 pounds myself. And when my mom got hit with the diabetes, she went temporarily blind for a couple of hours.
Mm.
And yeah, the medications just had her really out of it, very dizzy, lethargic. And I started looking up different practitioners that were more holistic. It wasn't my intention, but it just so happens that that's what the universe showed me. And so I had my mom and I become vegan and doing a lot of different herbs. And then she became pre diabetic. So that kicked off me wanting to help other people in the wellness space.
So from going from that journey to helping your mom to doing what you're doing now, how has this journey helped you evolve and grow as a person and what you do?
Yeah, immensely. So I always say veganism led me to spirituality. So the cleaner I was eating, I started becoming open to things like chakras, numerology, astrology, um, wanting to be more mindful. So
Mhm.
meditation as well and Reiki. And as I started doing those things, life took me for a turn. And I don't mean that in the nicest way. I mean that literally my self-discovery journey began, or my spiritual rebirth
Mhm.
of understanding who I was more as a person, and that was this empowering person, but I didn't get it back then. So what it looked like for me was I stopped drinking. I stopped eating meat, and I wanted to eat cleaner, and I wanted to surround myself around people who are in those spaces more. But it did take time. So for me, it stopped with alcohol, which I actually passed out on a train because I
Mhm.
had drank too much and I had to go to the hospital. And that was the first time where I was actually hit with Western medication that I didn't agree with, because they wanted me to take medication for MS or get an epidural shot to see if I had it. And I
Mhm.
was like, well, this doesn't make sense. So you want to give me medication for something that you're not sure if I have, or take the fluid outside of my body to see if I do have it. I was like, these options suck. So that was really it. And I, from that point on, I didn't go back, and I just started focusing on my own health the same way that I did with my mom, and I felt better. And it was due to me drinking just too much. Like my body just couldn't take it anymore like it used to. And then I just started going on this journey of like, well, there's more to this. Or I was being called to more of this.
Right.
And so when I moved from New York to Georgia at the end of 2021, that's when it really kicked off for me. I was doing journaling for the first time since I was like 10, and really wanted to understand the things I was going through and why I was going through these things. So life was my teacher, whether I wanted to accept it or not.
So did you find that, as a part of saying, hey, this is the thing that's holding me back, or this is the thing that's hindering me, did you find that, like, what was the emotional reason that why this was an issue? Like, because sometimes for people, like, it might be, eating, drinking, certain things like that, and it's usually an emotional response to why they're doing it. So what was it for you that would trigger you to go into this spiral?
Stress was a big thing at
Okay.
that time. I think when my mom was said that she was pre-diabetic, she didn't need her medications. That was around 2017, and then I started my business in 2018. but I don't think I actually dealt with the emotions of my
Mm,
mom having this disease and how it took over and it shaped my life and her life and how I was stressed. I don't think in the moment. I was more in that fight stage.
mm,
And I don't think I really ever left it and became just calm and went through the grieving process of what I did. One is a celebration of what I did with my mom. I don't even think I really even celebrated. It was just like, okay, cool, this is done. And I've never really thought about it as much as I'm thinking about it for this question right now. But I do think that I didn't really take the time to pause. And so that caught up to my body in addition to thinking that I was a superhero and that I can just drink like I did I was in college. Like,
right.
my body was changing, but my body was changing because I was eating differently.
Mm,
I wasn't eating as many toxic foods or processed foods as I used to. So it was hard for the alcohol to even probably digest inside of my body. So I would say for me, it was probably a lot of grief and sadness that I just didn't deal with. And it just manifested into these different aspects of my life.
yeah, that happens. It happens. I actually was talking to uh, my nephew the other day, and I was explaining to him about like your unconscious mind,
Hmm.
and sometimes the things that you're dealing with, or how you respond to things, or why you get angry so fast, and things like that, or even with the emotional stress, it's like, you know, your unconscious mind is so powerful because it's like you're like, why am I drinking this, or why did I just order a whole pizza and just decided that, somewhere there's some rationalization that says you deserve this pizza. This is for you, right? Like, you know, like, but that thing is like, it's so powerful that it does affect everything else. So I think that it's not easy. It's not easy, saying this is what the issue is, and this is what I need to do to fix it. And that part is easy, but then it's the journey, the grueling journey in between that people just they don't see it. So they feel like, oh, okay, well, I can do it too. And it's like, you're gonna need some help.
R- Right, right,
You're
exactly.
gonna need some help. Yeah.
It's not a simple journey at all. I say mine is a roller coaster ride, and I didn't actually have a lot of help. It wasn't until actually when I started moving to Georgia that I started meeting people, but I did a
Mm,
lot of my self work through books. So books was my greatest teacher. Actually, when I started journaling in 2022, it was The Artist's Way that got me to start journaling by Julia Cameron. And she said, for every day, you do 3 pages. And I'm like, what? Like, what am I going to journal about? And it ended up really helping me because I think about a year later, I looked at what I wrote. I'm like, wow, like I have this documentation now of this journey that I've been on, which is
mm,
what I'm speaking about now. That brought me to my self love and trying to understand myself, and that is what pivoted me from being a vegan coach to a women's wellness empowerment coach because I want women to love back on themselves and not shame themselves or guilt themselves for the trauma that we've been through, for all the ancestral trauma, the lineage things that we may not even recognize sometimes. Like I know for me in my culture, my family's from Guyana, like drinking is huge. You come over, you want to drink, like that's the first thing, that we talk about. It's crazy that that drink is not juice. It's normally
mm-hmm,
alcohol.
mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
it's like so we've all been trained to believe that that's the way that life was. I sure
Right,
did.
right.
Whereas it's not what we're drinking that makes the connection. It's talking to each other and showing each other kindness and love and respect. But it's like, no, you don't want to shop with me? Like what's wrong with you? And I've went through that. Like, you're not drinking it? And I'm like, but I'm still a fun, amazing person with or without the alcohol. And not everyone can view that about themselves, but that was the loving back on myself that I was taking responsibility back. Like, no, me in this human form, with or without alcohol. Now, because if I choose to have a glass, that's different. But if I'm depending on a glass, that's a whole nother thing.
It's funny that you say that, and I think usually what happens with people is that um they're trying to bring you within their frequency. That's really what it is. It's really them just saying, you don't do this anymore. You're not like that anymore. Oh man, you changed. You know what I mean? You used to be cool, man. Now you corny. Like, and you're thinking to yourself, am I corny?
Right. Well, it's like, no.
Yeah, you're not. What's happening is that and people can tell it's they're because if you're not doing it, then they start to think something's wrong with me, and then they get into this space where they're questioning themselves through you and your actions, and they're like, you know, and most times with certain people, and I'll always say this, it's like where you're vibrating at, where your frequency at, is like that's where you're at. It's not for you to say, oh, you need to be like me. It's more like whatever journey that you're on, whatever path that you're on, is for you. Whatever is for me is for me, but it doesn't change the fact that I can't, you know, love you and care about you. But our frequencies are not. After a while, there will be tension,
Right.
and it
And
happens.
I had double tension because I wanted to be vegan and not drink. So
Yeah,
it was a whole thing.
yeah,
And I agree. I think it's part of it is because people wish that they could do what I'm doing. And
yeah.
I had an experience. Like I think people forget that. Like I had an experience. This is why that I'm vegan. I just started realizing how toxic certain foods are. And I just decided that I didn't want to continue putting that inside of my body. Once you become aware, I'm the type of person that I'm now going to take action. Some people can be aware and ignore. I choose not to because I think on this journey, and we could go outside of food, even the things I've learned on my spiritual journey about how
Mm-hmm.
meditation allows my body to be more soothing, about how
Mm-hmm.
journaling allows me to process my emotions better. And it's still an everyday practice. And I think that's what a lot of people forget. It's like, well, you can't just do this for 3 months and then decide, like, I'm not going to do it for a whole year. Well, then you're still going to be dealing with the emotions inside of your body because your body keeps score of everything. And I wasn't taught that. I don't know if you were as a kid, but we weren't raised to understand those things. That like, hey, if I'm angry and I'm repressing it, I'm gonna have shoulder pain or back pain. So when I started learning those things and my body started sharing it with me, I was like, I don't want to ignore this anymore. I want to find ways to release, and that's when I got into energy work and more modalities that have helped me. And I'm like, well, I want to share that with women that I'm now talking to be like, you don't have to be in pain. Even something simple as like our periods, we don't have to be enemies with it. There are herbs that can help us, but most people want a quick fix. Everyone wants the Tylenol to just help them for a couple of hours, not knowing that that's actually deteriorating your body even more.
Mm-hmm.
There are more sustainable ways to help ourselves.
And I think that's the thing. It's like most people don't want to take that time and say, hey, you know what? I can work on this and I can, practice. Because even I've had people say to me all the time, they're like, man, you're so peaceful. Why are you so peaceful? Because I know I'm crazy. That's why I'm peaceful. Like, you understand what I'm saying? I got problems like everybody else. It's just that I'm aware of them. When I look in
Right.
the mirror, something is wrong. And then I'll be like, you know what? Let me figure out what's wrong.
Hmm.
Let me go down my little list of the things that can usually be wrong. And then let me, go get a facial, go get a massage, make a smoothie, go work out, whatever it may be. And okay, now I'm good. Because it's more about getting to that place where when you're in this field of coaching and helping people, you're giving from your soul. And if your soul is not nourishing, if it's not uplifting, if it's not empowering, if it's not beautiful, if it's not vibrating at a high frequency, who are you going to help?
Exactly.
Now you can help people stay where they are, but you can't help people rise. And a lot of times people just they don't want to when they see you, some people are resistant to it because they they're not there. And it's scary. Just like it was scary for you,
Hmm.
it's scary for them and it's like, "Hey, listen, you know what? Everything is in your time." it's okay. Like there's no pressure, no nothing. It's okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's definitely, and I want to say like I'm still on the journey. I don't think the journey ever stops, but there's certain tools that help you better along the journey. So there's ways that I am stubborn, and there's certain things I don't want to do. But there's the awareness that you mentioned that I'm like, okay, at least I'm aware like this feels off, or like I don't want to do that,
All right.
and maybe I'll push through it and maybe I won't. But at least I know like I'm self-sabotaging. Like I'm getting in my own way and I can admit that.
Yes.
And sometimes I'm having a conversation with someone and they put that in my face. They're like, "Hey, like why won't you do this? Like this sounds great." I'm like I don't know. Like I just don't want to do it. So there's still some times that it hits me as well, even with working with people. And I'm like, okay. But I'm glad I know this now instead of being ignorant to the fact that, oh, I'm getting in my way or I'm the problem. Like, how dare I be the problem? Like, it's always somebody else. That's we always looking to somebody else as not going to take accountability. And I think when you're on your journey, that's probably the biggest thing is when you can take accountability for your own actions with yourself, with why you're not where you want to be, with why you can't interact with other people, then that's showing that you're willing to do the work. But until then, it's going to be hard, or you're just going to be oblivious to what's going on around you. But that's why certain relationships can't flourish, because I find for me the best relationships that I have with people are the ones who are self-aware, who understand what's going on in their worlds and why certain things aren't happening for themselves or why certain things are. And then we could talk about it and be like, oh man, like I see, because we're a reflection of each other. Like I see myself in you, you see yourself in me.
Yeah.
And can you accept that and know that we can probably attain to be even better than what we currently are if we're willing to try? And that's like as simple as I can say is that if you're willing to try to change, then change will happen, no matter how fast or how slow.
Yeah. Yeah. I could see how this conversation could easily go an hour. Um, thank God that I said, you know what, like, we're gonna keep this like this, and because we talked for a long time. I'm just letting y'all know we talked for a while, and I didn't expect it to be that. I don't think she did either, but it happened. Um, you know what I mean? Because once before, sometimes you feel alone in what you do, your journey, and then
Hmm.
when you realize that people are like can understand what you're saying, you don't sound foreign to them. Uh, that's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it's a gift.
Yeah, it is. It is. Oh my gosh. But yeah. So let me ask you this. This is your interview. I'm thinking. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? There's a part of me like, yeah, girl, I understand too. Like, um, but let me get back to you and what you do. All right. So so in the people that you've helped through what you do as far as being, doing the women empowerment, what do you think is, you know, how have you changed people? How have you changed their lives? And when you made this impact on people, um, when did you realize, okay, this is it. This is what I'm going to do?
Good question, because it's taken me a while to actually even realize the strength that I've had with coaching people, because I'm still learning my business and I'm very transparent about where I am. Like I'm still in building mode.
Okay.
And the people who I have worked with, though, from they were coming to me for my vegan coaching program at the
Mm,
time. But it was interesting because the two clients that came, they actually didn't want to become vegan, but they wanted to be coached by me because of who I am and how I hold space. So that's why I mentioned earlier, like I am a space holder, like sacred circles is what I'm really good at. I allow people to show up as what I say is in their mess. Like show up being authentic. Show up with the pain that you're experiencing. Show up with that you've been trying to lose weight for X amount of years, but you haven't been able to. I hold a very non-judgmental space for women. And it doesn't always come that easy for women to be in those type of containers with someone because we can be very catty with each other. And I think that the most transformational space is understanding that I'm going to allow them to be, and we're going to work through things that they probably didn't expect from a wellness empowerment coach. And For example, I had a client who wanted to have more vegan foods incorporated into her day to day. And she had this resistance to wanting to either make the meals or just talk about the meals. And so I'm really great with journaling. I love people doing self discovery, but with me supporting them. So I would ask her certain questions, and then it ended up being linked to, well, wow, I didn't realize like I was always people pleasing with my dad and making meals for him. And that's why I'm having an abrasion now. And so it ended up being that I realized one of my strengths is going deeper in the work without pushing and without being like, well, can't you see this? Like it's very blunt but loving and showing you like there's trauma around why we don't want to eat certain foods or why we don't want to do certain things or why we don't want to sit with ourselves that have happened in our past that are important to understand with who we are now. So that was the biggest transformational with her of realizing like if I could get through this barrier, then it actually made my wellness journey a lot easier. And it did. It was actually amazing because she ended up messaging me saying that now she's intermittent fasting, which is something that we spoke about. And I was like, but it took that. It wasn't about me creating a meal plan for her. It wasn't about me even giving her accountability coaching to be like, hey, did you do the homework this week? It was about conversations that are expanding.
Yeah, yeah, I find that like even um when I'm working with people, it's like it took me a while, but I had to learn like like I told you before, like how I just do like 5 sessions. And most times I stick with that because one, it forces the person to just like, okay, I gotta let go. I really have to let go in this moment because and I've learned from, my trial and error journey of working with people that um some people can't like and people have told me this, they'll be like, when I work with you, it's like I feel like something's always wrong with me, right? And it's like, and I'm thinking to myself, that's not my goal. I want you to, uh, so I'm like, you know what? I need to cut this down a little bit, like, because everybody like responds to different people's energy differently. If I'm around, like I know for me, if I'm in and out, cool. If I stay around too long, after a while, you're gonna be like, I don't like you, right? And it happens. And so what I've learned was, okay, this is what works. This is that sweet spot for me. And I think, you know, for you, it's going to be that. It might be that thing where it's like, hey, um, you know, creating these conversations for people and letting them decide. Because I always say to people, you have the answers. I don't have the answers, so don't think like oh, you're so wise. Like, no,
Yeah.
the answers are in you. It's just I'm tapping on the doors to see which one is actually going to open for you and what's going to open so that you can be what you need to be. Because it's like what you said earlier. It's like sometimes with people, we're the reasons that we're holding ourselves back. And it's hard to look at that and say, wait, this is my fault? Yeah, like we can blame our upbringing, our parents, stuff like that. But, they did the best that they could with what they knew. And now a lot of things we're going to have to work through because of what they taught us, the pros and the cons of that. And then there's certain things that we're fighting against us. And I was explaining to someone else, like, we're fighting against it because it's just a part of our DNA. And we're going to be fighting against it for the rest of our lives.
I literally just finished reading Emotionally Immature Parents. It's a book about,
Mm-hmm.
how our parents grew up and how it's affected us. And that's the things that I'm working on myself consistently. But you teach from where you're at.
Right.
And I think that that's a beautiful part of this journey is like we're always constantly still learning, but we're a step further. But it's just in showing you how to get behind that door. Like
Right.
we're a guide is how I view it. And I always like to say like not everything is this deep work. Like sometimes it's showing people how to have fun again in their lives and tap back into their inner child.
Mm-hmm.
So, because I host retreats as well. I actually have one at the end of this year that I'm doing. And in that retreat, it is literally called the playground because I want people to come and not worry about like, oh my God, I'm so anxious about what's going on in my job or my business. Like, just be and be in community and let's play Uno together and do the wellness detoxes with each other and take a hike. Like, life can sometimes be brought back to being simple and just appreciating the little things and cooking classes with each other and something that brings you that joy that maybe you haven't had in a while in your life. So I do like to go back and forth with the work. Like, yes, I'm going to ask you some tough questions, but also like let's do the love and light stuff and let me show you how wellness doesn't have to be so daunting as well.
Yeah, yeah, I always tell people like I love working with people because I get to learn, like it's a mutual thing. It's helping them helps me.
Hmm.
It's like and vice versa. So it's like you're right. Creating that space is great because that's what I used to when I would put together shows and stuff like that. Um, there were a lot of people who were shy and nervous about performing and things like that, but when they got out there, they were like, "Oh my God, this was amazing! I had so much fun. I really enjoyed it." So it really, you're right. Creating that space allows for them to not feel restricted in how they're in their thought process and their belief system, and you kind of open them up to everything else that you do. Um, you're really good. Um, yeah, you're good. You're good. Keep it up. I'm trying to tell you, like you're because I grew up in a hair salon, and I can honestly tell you, women are really hard on themselves.
Hmm.
Um, women are really hard on themselves, but it's not the roles that women play in life. Um, everyone doesn't understand the value of what they bring. Just like certain women don't understand the value of what men bring. Sometimes they
Hmm.
look at it like, oh, well, you just here for sex. You just here for the money. Okay, I'm just give you for that. But it's like, no, you might not realize, like, having that person to talk to, having like a person who might not have that emotional response and just have that sounding board, it's different. It's important. But
Absolutely.
so let me ask you this: what is with everything that you're doing? Because I mean, obviously, you're doing some awesome, awesome work. What is your ultimate goal and your vision with everything that you're doing thus far, and where do you see yourself? You lit up
Mm.
when I said that. You just lit all the way up. You go ahead. Go ahead, girl. But go ahead. I'm listening.
Why is it so crazy? Because it's a question that it has so many different answers. Like, I'm not right now in a space where I'm like, in 5 years, I know exactly where I'm going to be because I actually don't. My business has taken so many different, I call it the art of the pivot. Like, I've started off one way and now I'm this empowerment coach who's doing retreats. Last year, if you met me, I wasn't doing that. So right now, what I can say is that I'm building communities. I'm building like minded connections for people to show up, love on each other, love on themselves, and learn about holistic practices. Learn that they don't have to rely on medications if they don't want to. They can eat cleaner and it doesn't have to taste bad. I can show them how you can have a Southern meal that is healthier. And I love doing those things. I love showing the other side of how people think like, oh wow, like a barbecue meal, how could this taste good and feel good? And so for me, it's just creating those communities, whether it's online or it's in a retreat space. So I know for sure I will be doing more retreats, collaborating with other business owners for those spaces. But another space that I do am working on is being in the corporate space and doing wellness retreats for employees because coming from a 9 to 5 life, I'm an ex social worker, and the mental health space is crazy because we're always helping people with their mental health, but sometimes the employees get left behind, most times. And so I want to bring the same space that I'm doing for my own retreats underneath Miss Wellness to these companies and
Mhm.
do it for their employees, help them with stress reduction, show them different herbs and different foods, do the team building activities to make their workspace fun. Because when you actually enjoy where you work and you realize that your bosses care about your well being, you'll show up better. So that's more around what I'm focusing on for this year, in addition to my own retreats and just doing some public speaking events. Definitely looking to be in cities near you, and just yeah, take the world by storm with just talking about this self love of what you're talking about right now. Loving back on ourselves, but just in a deeper way of getting our hair done and getting our nails and taking ourselves out. Like it's work, like doing the work on ourselves, but doing it in a very fun and accepting and loving way.
Yeah, because it's you're going to save a lot of people's lives from helping the employees. I'm gonna tell you that right now. And there's a lot of people who they work and they're stressed out, and they need that. They need to know that I matter.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times with especially with leaders in a work environment, they don't learn how to in their minds are like, okay, well, if I am a good employer, or I'm a good manager, or I'm a good CEO, I have to remind you that I'm this.
Mm.
I have to remind you, oh, I'm in charge, da 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 da. Instead of like, being the example. If you suck at your job, you don't have to. You having to say that just reveals that like you're not that good at it. You know what I mean? I've never had to walk into a room and people say, I had to say to them, yes, y'all, listen, I'm the leader. This is what I'm going to do. It just happened because I was like, you know, I was working and I was doing stuff that people were just like, yeah, let him do that because I ain't trying to do all that. And then by default, they wind up following suit with everything that you're doing. So it's
Mhm.
you're going to help a lot of people like with that. That's a very impactful thing.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
look forward to it. I think that that's something where I'm being drawn to because that wasn't the intention to get back into the corporate space. I had a very I was getting in my own way of wanting to do that, but it seems like something that I wish I had when I was in the space more of these like going, to Costa Rica with employees. Like I wish my job would have done that. What? I probably would have stayed longer,
Yeah.
and having massages. And some companies now are doing that, but it's just not the normal. And I think wellness, having consultants like myself, it should be the norm and not just giving spaces a gym and someone to come on site once a month or so, like more intensive work with these people. And bringing in, it could be a massage person. I would love that too, but the sound bowl healer, and just showing them like, hey, let's have fun with each other. Because I have on actually on the shirt that I'm wearing, you can't see it though, it says community over competition. Like the more we collaborate in these corporate spaces too, the better everyone will feel. Like as you said, like when you just walked in the room, people knew you had the energy. When you walk the walk, you don't have to talk.
You don't.
And when you're in those jobs where the head person is like trying to take over so much, it doesn't build for a good foundation. And that's what I want to help people have, feel good that their job is a safe space.
Yeah, like if you get fired, right? There's two types of people that you're okay if they like. Well, there's two main people that fire you. You have the person who fire you, and it's like you feel like if you get fired, you coming back tomorrow, and you gonna fight them. And then there's the person who might let you go, and you're like, you know what? He tried. I like to lean towards the I tried area. Like, but I think at the end of the day, like with what you're gonna do, it's gonna again allow people to, more importantly, see who they are. And I think that you have that gift. You have the gift to say, you know what, um, this is who you are. I think that's even though sometimes it is uncomfortable because it's gonna happen. It happens with me. Like I always tell myself, I'm like, okay, I gotta do what's uncomfortable for me. And it's like, and person might say, why would you want to do that? And it's usually just because, on the other side, who I am now, who I really am is on the other side of my uncomfortability.
Mm.
So this is not my real self. I'm accepting this version of myself because everyone else does. But I don't accept me.
Mm.
So,
That's so good. That was a message in itself. I hope everybody heard that because I'm taking that message myself in different facets where, like I said before, of being stubborn and there's certain things that I don't want to do, but there is growth on the other side. And these challenges come about, we sometimes don't recognize it while we're going through it,
yeah.
but it is to make us better. Life is full of just experiences. We label them as good or bad, and I'm one to do it as well. But really, truly, it's just an experience. And how we choose to handle the experience is what is going to define us. Like, are we going to stay in
Hmm.
the old self, or are we going to evolve into this newer, higher self, we can call it?
Yeah. And then once you do that, you can now, because once you go through that transformation, now you can help more people. It's like one thing for me is like I don't want to be like I stayed who I am, and this person over here somewhere in this world is suffering all because I decided to stay this way
Mhm.
when I could have evolved and grew and been available and capable and evolved enough to be able to help them within the space that they're in.
Right.
Because
I mean,
everybody's not going to be receptive
mm, hmm
to where you are now.
the saying is true. If you're not growing, you're dying. Like
Yeah.
we shouldn't. I shouldn't be the same 5 years ago as I am today, I'm definitely not. And it's interesting because if I were to look from like probably 27
Mhm.
to younger, things were pretty consistent. And sometimes I even compare like then to now. I'm like, dang, like life was good, but it's because I was also just like living in what we may call the matrix, or just living my day to day life. I just thought that you got the job, you got the car, you got the house, and life was great, and I had it. And I was like, no, this is good. This is good. And then life came crashing down. And I'm like, well, do I really want three cars now? Like, is that really going to make me happy? Do I really need a mansion for myself with 10 rooms? Now, the person who wants that, if you really want that, because life is about what we want and really desire, then by all means go ahead. But I really want to travel. I want adventure. I want freedom. I want to be able to connect with whoever I want at whatever time I desire. And I have to show up someplace because they tell me. But those are things that I've learned, and I've had to break down my old beliefs, which is the work. Like, not everybody wants to do that. People want to stay with, well, my parents taught me this is how I have to live my life, and I'm going to stick to this. And that's okay if you really believe it. But one thing I've been learning with, because I think we talked about this, like I love to read, and a lot of books are like, well, are you doing something because you want it, or are you doing something because you were taught it? And I was like, damn,
Mhm.
so true. And so that's when I started asking myself those questions, like, what do I really want, and what really makes me, I'm gonna say feel joyful, because I used to say feel happy, but happy is a condition. So it's like if let's for example, you were like, you know what, like this podcast got deleted, and I'm like, oh man, like I'm mad. But then the next week you're like, guess what? But I got an opportunity for you for a client. Now I'm happy. It's conditional,
Yeah.
But inner joy, no matter what happens, I'm okay. And that to me is honestly what I'm constantly striving for, is that joy and that peace, no matter what happens in my life.
Yeah, I think for people to have that, that really requires, um, and this is really the hard part. It really requires not being associated with anything, but allowing everything to exist.
Mm, yeah, that is tough.
That's tough. That's
Yes,
a that's a tough one because most people that's a struggle that most people have. Even I have it, and
same.
yeah, it's but you learn a part of that process. You learn this is what it is. This is what I need to do, this is how you grow. So, but I I could talk to you for eons. But listen, but what I'm going to say is, so I'm going to wrap this up with one last question. How can people find you? How can you empower all these women out here? Because I'm sure there's going to be women out here who are going to love this, and hopefully, and they will be uplifted so that you can help them to love who they are. So, how can people find you?
Yeah, so my website, www.mswellnessllc.com. You can find me on Instagram, plant-based vibes, so PLANTBASEVIBES. And then LinkedIn, which is actually where I'm mostly active. You could look up Miss Wellness LLC, or you could look up Tanisha Naughton, and you can find me there and connect with me. I always love just having a conversation. Send me a message, send me an email, and let's just vibe out. I'm all about the vibes, which is why it's in my name. So all about the vibes. It's not. It's just very different. That's the best way I can say. Like, just come and have the experience, and come be surrounded around amazing women, and yeah, take care of yourselves.
And we're going to create her a profile on Dream Society website, so you guys can find her there as well. So all that information will be there. I'll leave the link in the description below. Tanisha, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, man.
I am not only amazed at what you do, but I think that what you're doing is gonna just be you, man. It's cool.
Thank you.
Just be you.
Thank
Like
you.
I know you're like working on a lot of things within yourself. We all are, but
Yeah.
you're doing that seed and light worker work, and you're bringing people together and uplifting, and so I think keep be mindful. Don't be hard on yourself.
The ultimate reminder.
Yeah,
Thank you, man.
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. No worries. So, thank you. I hope you guys enjoy, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Peace.